What's up, guys? So I'm going to show you something called a stationary lunge. This drill is a fantastic, let's just say, hip opener. It's a good glute activator. This is sort of a precursor for really lunging. I mean, if this is a drill that you're really struggling with, you might find that, maybe if you really break down your lunge, like a dynamic lunge or a jumping lunge, that there's some problems with it. This is a great kind of baseline for, okay, am I even ready to do a lunge, or a more advanced type of lunge? So I'm going to run clip and show you what I'm looking for. Okay, I'm going to pause it there because I'm showing a few variations of what I don't want to see. So let's start from the beginning. First thing that I did was I'm going to go ahead and set my hips. So when I get into this position here, if I have tight hips, being here is hard for a lot of us. My back leg being, we'll just say, there, that is going to want to crank my pelvis backwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, I call this setting my hips. I want to make sure my hips are in a neutral position before I even begin these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through both ends of the spectrum. I'm going to go wrong tilt, set in neutral. So let's look at that again. This is the wrong way. You can kind of see my back is in this really bowed shape. This is not where I want to be. I want to see a nice straight line from shoulder down to hip. From here, little pelvic tuck, little Michael Jackson hip thrust. What I'm doing is the leg that's down, the downside leg, I am squeezing that glute as tight as I possibly can. So that's going to lock my hips in a good position. And when I lock that glute into place, when I flex my butt as hard as I can on that side, I'm going to feel a nice hip stretch in the front of that same leg. So once I set that, I want to make sure that I am, we'll call it stacked. You can see that my ear, let's just say there's a straight line there, right? What I don't want is that. And I see a lot of people trying to lunge here. And there's going to be variations where you're going to load that front leg. Not necessarily wrong, but not what we're trying to do here. I want to make sure that I am stacked over the line. From here, all I'm going to do is with both feet, I'm going to press down, and I'm going to go straight to the top. I'm keeping this back glute clenched the entire way, and then I'm going to descend. So what I'd like to do is, and if you have a foam roller, you can literally just put that right in front of you, but I want to imagine that there's a wall right here. So when I go straight up, I'm not hitting that wall. I'll give you a better line so you can actually see something. So here's my invisible wall. When I go down and up, this is a straight vertical drop. I don't want again, this back glute, that stays flexed the entire time. And I really don't want that thing to unlatch at any point. Now, if you're a little bit tight in the hips like me, you can see that I'm going to point out something wrong because this is something that I'm working on as a coach. But because my hips are not as flexible as they should be, when I get to the very top, I want you to kind of watch kind of my belt line right here. That should stay flat. When I get to the top, because my hips are a little bit tight, you can see that it gets pulled a little bit here. Now, I'm not saying that that's okay, but I'm still clenching that back glute as tight as I can, and this is still a big hip opener. So even if I can't get it perfect, I can still use this as a fantastic hip opener. Same thing, I'm going to go down, and then let me show you what I don't want to see. So right here, let me just look quick. Think 90 degrees, right? I'm just going to draw some boxes. There's a box. There's a box. There's a box. I mean, I have a series of 90-degree angles here, right? That's my starting position. If I move my front foot backwards, you can see that now I don't have that, right? This here is too narrow of a stance. It's going to shift me forward, and you can see how my body is now no longer vertical. I'm really more leaning forward. And again, there is a time and place for loading that front leg. We're just not doing it for this drill. So make sure that you are staying stacked over your knee. and we're just going straight up, straight down. Okay, this is the stationary lunge. Again, this is something that I want you to be pretty comfortable with before you try doing any kind of dynamic movement. I mean, if your hips are that tight and you try to do like a jumping lunge, you can easily, pull a hip flexor, strain a quad. A lot of things can happen. This will also let you know, maybe, if your quads are really tight and you're starting to feel a little bit of pain or discomfort in your knee, especially, we don't want that, especially the knee that's, we'll say the down knee. If I'm feeling a little bit of tightness in my quad, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I should say a little bit of a tension in my kneecap. It's not necessarily a bad thing because when your quads contract, they're actually going to be pulling on that. But if they're really, really tight, they're going to pull on your kneecap, and they're actually going to kind of push it up against that gliding surface that it slides against to a point where you feel discomfort. So if you're doing that and this is kind of bugging you, maybe foam roll out your quads, do some couch stretch, really just open up those quad muscles, those hip flexors before you do any kind of lunge. But this is a fantastic hip opener, we'll say quad opener, glute activator. At the same time, in a sense, it's also a core workout because as I'm doing this, I really don't want my rib cage shooting up. My back is staying in a nice straight line, nice neutral position. Okay, give these a try. Let me know how they go.